The monks of the eastern wind whispered of a secret, a touch not of flesh, but of fate. They said, touch a man where his soul remembers, and he will never forget you, not in this life, nor the next. But they never spoke of fingers or flesh. They spoke of something far more powerful. Stay until the final breath of this message. Buried between dates and shadows are the doors you've been waiting to find. The ones that lead to your rise. Lo the puck, your clarity and your moment of power. There is a place within us that cannot be touched by the world, yet holds the power to move it. It is not the body, though the body may tremble in its presence. It is not the mind, though the mind often races to interpret its language. It is something quieter, older, the part of us that remembers the sky before names, the wind before destinations. This is where sacred touch begins. This is where energy is exchanged without words and impressions are made without hands. To touch a man down there, in the realm of spirit and memory, is to reach the root of his becoming. Not the part that reacts, but the part that remembers. In the ancient teachings of the East, it is said that every human being has 3 flames, one in the mind, one in the heart, and one below the navel. The third flame is often misunderstood. It is not purely desire. It is the gate of memory, the place where deep emotional experiences are stored and encoded through sensation. When touched with reverence, this gate does not awaken lust alone. It awakens imprint, and imprint, unlike impulse, stays. There is a difference between contact and communion. A touch of skin does not always reach the soul, yet there are women, often unaware of their own power, whose presence leaves a mark far deeper than sensation. Touch a man through awareness, not technique. They see what is hidden behind his strength. They trace the landscape of his soul, not just the terrain of his body. It is this presence that becomes an addiction, not because it feeds the ego, because it nourishes what he didn't know was starving. A Zen parable tells of a young woman who fell in love with a blind calligrapher. Each night, she would sit beside him in silence, watching his hands glide over parchment. She never once spoke of her feelings. Before leaving, she would place a single camellia flower beside his inkstone. One day, the calligrapher asked, "Why does the air smell of longing when you enter?" She smiled and said, "Because I have touched nothing, and that is how you finally felt me." We think addiction comes from stimulation, but real longing arises from depth, from remembrance, from a moment when time stood still and a soul felt seen. In daily life, this sacred touch shows itself in the most subtle ways. A woman's voice softening when she senses her man has had a hard day. The silence she offers instead of questions. The way she lingers in a hug a few seconds longer than expected. Not for herself, for the part of him that doesn't know how to ask for comfort. In these moments, something ancient stirs in the man. Not just love, safety. Not just safety, but devotion. He does not understand it logically. He only knows that in her presence, something within him exhales. And once the soul has exhaled in front of someone, it remembers the path to do so again. The Taoist sage Zhuangzi once said, "The fish trap exists because of the fish." Once you have the fish, forget the trap. In love, once you have reached the soul, forget the performance. Presence alone is enough, but presence must be earned. It is not created through seduction, but silence. Not through control, but surrender. And yet, there is something even more ancient than presence. That is intuition. If sacred touch is the river, intuition is the moon that pulls its tide. Intuition is not a luxury. It is a compass left behind by the divine, so that those who listen may never be truly lost. It does not shout. It does not demand. It is a feather landing on your shoulder when you expect a stone. A woman's intuition is her oldest language. It speaks when her mind is confused. It appears when her plans unravel. It whispers when words fail her. But the challenge is not in hearing intuition. It is in trusting it before proof appears. Between the 3rd and 5th of the month, the energy shifts quietly. These days are subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye. But those who walk with spirit can sense the tremor. Decisions made on these days echo long after. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are aligned. Intuition is not about paranoia or suspicion. It is about recognition. The body knows before the mind deciphers. A Zen story tells of an old master who once brought his students to a bamboo grove. He pointed to 2 paths. One was well lit and straight, the other crooked, covered in shadow and thorns. Without explanation, he said, "Choose the one that listens to you." Only one student stepped toward the crooked path. Later, the master smiled and said, "Path is dangerous, but it will teach you how to trust your feet. The other path needs no trust, only assumption. One awakens, the other lulls." So often in love, we choose the path that looks safe rather than the one that feels right. Intuition in relationship is not just sensing what the other is doing, it is feeling what they are not saying. When a man grows quiet, the intuitive woman does not panic. She watches, she listens. She does not invade, she invites. She touches him not through demands, but through stillness. And sometimes the most powerful message is this: I see something is happening within you, and I am not afraid of it. This is the moment when the masculine heart, long trained to carry burdens in silence, begins to open. In nature, animals rely on intuition as survival. Birds sense storms days before the skies change. Wolves feel vibrations through the ground before sound arrives. Humans, though gifted with intellect, slowly forgotten the ancient gift of sensing before seeing. But in moments of grief, love, or danger, intuition returns. A woman standing at the edge of heartbreak already knows what will happen. Her body feels the turning tide. Her dreams may speak of it. Her stomach knots without reason. And still she waits for the mind to catch up. Yet the woman who has remembered her inner compass does not betray it for comfort. She allows truth to rise, even when it hurts, even when no one else believes her. As the Chinese philosopher Liezi once wrote, "To walk in silence while the heart screams is the test of the one who knows." The connection between sacred touch and intuition is deeper than we often understand. When a woman ignores her inner knowing, her touch becomes unsure, her presence divided. She begins to seek reassurance externally, through validation, through reaction, through control. When her intuition is sharp and quiet like a blade beneath silk, her very presence calms storms. Her touch becomes a seal, not a question. And the man who receives this, even if unaware, will return, not to the body, but to the memory of that touch, the space, the pause, the peace. In this journey of awakening, one truth remains clear: the deepest power is not in doing, but in being aware, being still, being present in a world that constantly rushes to forget itself. There is a river that flows beneath all things: relationships, timing, the moments that change our lives. Sacred touch draws from that river. Intuition rides its current, and together they guide us back to the only place that matters, the space where soul meets soul, without force, without fear, without noise, just recognition, just presence, just the quiet knowing you have touched something in me that I never knew longed to be touched. Let this truth move slowly within you like the wind through tall grass, not forcing answers, but inviting remembrance. You already know, you always have. Comes a moment in the silent turning of life's great wheel when one begins to sense they were not simply born, they were sent. Not all are sent. Some pass through life untouched by the winds of deeper purpose. Others carry within them the silent knowing that something has been entrusted to them. A burden, perhaps, or a fire, or a message they do not yet understand. This is the one we call the chosen. To be chosen is not to be praised. It is not to be better or more grand. It is simply to be marked, not by the world, but by the unseen. And the mark rarely feels like a crown. More often, it feels like a wound. Many women today walk with this quiet ache, this invisible question inside them: why do I feel more? Why do I see deeper? Why do I stay awake in moments where others sleep? It is not madness. It is memory. Chosen one is the one whose heart does not close, even when betrayed. Who continues to love, even when unloved. Who listens, even when drowned in noise. To be chosen is to be called not to comfort, but to clarity. And clarity demands solitude, detachment, and often misunderstanding. There is a story told in the old monasteries of a young monk who kept sweeping the same corner of the temple floor, even though it was already clean. Day after day, the others laughed. "Why do you sweep what is spotless?" The young monk replied, "I am not cleaning the dust, I am listening to what it teaches me." Years later, it was revealed that beneath that floor lay a forgotten scroll, a map of the temple's origins. The chosen do not always know why they do what they do, they simply feel guided. And when questioned, they have no proof, only peace. In the realm of relationships, a woman who is chosen becomes a mirror. She reflects to a man what he tries to hide. She sees not his mask, but his memory. And sometimes this awakens fear in him, not because she is wrong, but because she is right too soon. The chosen woman touches not only the body, but the calling within the man. She reminds him of what he came here to do. This is why her presence is not always easy. She activates, confronts, awakens. A real-world echo of this can be seen in the caterpillar. It does not recognize the chrysalis as a gift. It sees it as an ending. Yet without it, the wings remain hidden. So, too with chosen souls. Their touch may feel disruptive at first. Their love may feel overwhelming. But in time, those who are ready will see it was never just affection. It was an invitation to ascend. As the sage Bodhidharma once whispered, "The one who sees your suffering before you name it, walk with her." She carries keys. It is not that the chosen feel more. It is that they are unable to close their eyes. Even in the dark, they search. Even in silence, they hear the call. This is their power, but it is also their solitude. Still, the universe does not mark them without reason. For what is marked must one day become a guide. And it is here we must journey into the next truth, the great wheel, the spiral of cycles. The universe, much like the breath, does not move in straight lines. It inhales, it pauses. It exhales, it rests. So too does fate. There are seasons not just in the world, within each life, each love, each soul. To ignore the cycle is to fight the current. Flow with it is to ride the river into the unknown, not in fear, but in reverence. Between the 13th and 16th of each month, there exists a moment of divine alignment. These are the days when the wheel turns upward, when clarity sharpens, when old confusion falls away like leaves from a tired tree. A woman in tune with the universal cycle will sense this shift. May not be able to name it, but she will feel it. Her words flow more naturally. Her energy attracts rather than persuades. The veil between heart and mind thins, and even the man who once doubted finds himself drawn to her without understanding why. This is not coincidence. It is the tide returning. A story is told in an old Tibetan monastery of a bell that rings without being touched, but only on certain nights when the moon is exactly halfway full. Monks say the bell sings because the silence becomes so perfect it must express itself. In life, there are times when everything clicks not because we force it, but because we are in rhythm with something larger than us. This cycle is not always visible, but it is always felt. In nature, we see it clearly. Birds begin to migrate before the chill arrives. Trees release their leaves long before the snowfall. They do not wait for proof. They follow the rhythm written in their bones. So should we. In personal development, many breakthroughs do not come when we are trying hardest. They come when we let go at the right moment. The divine inhale before transformation. A woman aligned with universal cycles knows when to speak and when to simply be, when to lean in and when to lean back. This rhythm is her power. It is the difference between force and influence, between noise and impact. She is not always the loudest. She is remembered. As the philosopher Chuang Tzu once reflected, the perfect man uses his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing. It reflects everything. It receives, but does not keep. When we live in harmony with the universal rhythm, our touch becomes more than sensual. It becomes spiritual memory. A man may forget your words, your appearance, even your presence for a time, but he will not forget how it felt to be in your flow, not because you did more, but because you moved with the wind. And just as no river rushes its way through stone, you too must trust the carving of your path. Gentle, deliberate, eternal. This cycle is not only about alignment with blessing, but readiness for elevation. For when the energy opens, the soul is asked, are you prepared to become what you prayed for? The chosen woman, walking with the rhythm of the cosmos, knows that not all doors open outward. Some doors require a deep surrender inward, the willingness to become still even when movement is expected, to become soft even when the world demands hardness, to know the difference between loneliness and sacred solitude, between delay and divine preparation. And so the journey continues, ever inward, ever upward. The chosen one awakens not to rise above others, but to remember her role as a vessel, a mirror, a guide. And the wheel continues to turn. You are not behind. You are not late. You are simply being synchronized with the hidden rhythm of your becoming. A rhythm not of this world, but of the stars behind it. In the quiet hours of the soul, there are moments when the world does not move forward. It folds inward. These are the times when nothing seems to respond, when prayers echo into stillness, and the once clear path becomes covered in shadow. Most people call these times trials, but those who walk the path of wisdom know them as spiritual testing grounds, sacred intervals where the universe does not ask, what do you want? But rather, what have you become? To be tested is not to be punished. It is to be revealed. The seasons of spiritual testing do not arrive with thunder or warning. They appear quietly, often disguised in the ordinary. Silence from someone you love, a delay in what you hoped for, a disappointment that shakes your foundation. These are not disruptions. They are mirrors. Between the 20th and 23rd of the cycle, the energies shift inward. Like the tide pulling back before a wave, soul is asked to retreat, not to give up, but to remember. These days test not your strength, but your alignment. They do not challenge what you can control, but rather what you can surrender. There is an old parable of a monk who planted a tree on the edge of a cliff. Each day he watered it, fed it, and prayed over it. The tree did not grow. For years it remained a small, twisted branch. When the abbot asked him why he persisted, the monk replied, "Because the wind that beats it teaches me patience. I do not water it to make it bloom. I water it to stay loyal to what I began." Many of us want reward without refinement. But in truth, the blessing cannot stay where the foundation is weak. Testing days are the fire that hardens the vessel, not because the flame is cruel, but because the wine of destiny is too precious to be poured into something unready. In real life, consider the butterfly. Before it flies, it dissolves. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar's body turns to liquid. There is no wing to stretch, no eye to see. It must sit in the darkness without a shape, without direction, and still trust the hidden intelligence that governs its rebirth. So too with us. In relationships, in purpose, in love, we often must pass through the cocoon of uncertainty. When a man pulls away, when a path closes, when your voice feels unheard, you are not being abandoned. You are being shaped. The ancient philosopher Zen, no, Rikit once said, "The flower is not beautiful because it is seen. It is beautiful because it blooms even when unseen." During these days, it is not your charm or skill that determines what remains. It is your willingness to stay in harmony, even when the music fades. This spiritual testing often separates the temporary from the timeless. You may see someone fall away. You may feel an urge to chase or explain. But the awakened woman knows not everything that leaves was meant to stay, and not everything that stays is meant to evolve. She does not fight the fire, she bows to it. Because she understands those who are purified by fire walk lighter, speak softer, love deeper. Even in the absence of applause, she remains faithful to the rhythm of her soul, not because of proof, but because of peace. And from that peace, the final truth arises that love, real love, is not an escape from the spiritual path. It is the path. To merge deeply with another is not to forget yourself. It is to meet yourself through someone else's mirror. When two souls come together in truth, the relationship becomes a teacher, a temple, a mirror that reflects both the wounds and the wisdom we carry. The path of sensuality is not opposed to the spiritual journey. It is a sacred expression of it when held with reverence. The body is not separate from the soul. It is its echo, its home, its prayer made form. But modern love has lost this language. We chase affection like fireflies, forgetting that the glow is not in the insect, but in its rhythm with the night. To become someone's addiction, not through seduction, but through sacred presence, is to awaken a longing not just of the flesh, but of the memory buried deep within the spirit. There is a Zen tale of a woman who walked every evening to the river where she would light a lantern and let it float downstream. One night, a man followed her and asked, "Why do you light these flames if no one sees them?" She replied, "The river remembers. When someone comes thirsty for light, the water will know where to guide him." In the same way, love offered from the soul leaves its trace. It may not be noticed at once, but it imprints. In the intimacy of touch, a woman can awaken more than desire. She can awaken remembrance, the memory of what it feels like to be truly safe, truly seen, not judged, not managed, but held. When a man meets this touch, not the touch of performance, but the touch of presence, he may not have the words to describe it, but his nervous system will relax. His eyes will soften. He will return to it, not for pleasure, but for peace. In everyday life, this is the way a woman walks beside her partner, not needing to speak over his silence. The way she places her hand on his chest, not to demand an answer, but to simply say, "I feel you." The way she knows when to stay without fixing and when to step back without fear. The path of love becomes a path of self-mastery. The woman who walks it must learn when to open and when to contain, when to offer and when to observe, when to become fire and when to become the calm that surrounds it. As the mystic poet Lala once wrote, "I searched for myself until I met you. Then I found both of us." When two souls align with divine timing, love becomes more than partnership. It becomes a crucible. The energy exchanged is no longer just emotion, it is transformation. What begins in the body, if sacred, echoes in the spirit. It purifies, it elevates, it dissolves ego, expectation, and illusion. This level of love can only be entered through readiness. That readiness does not arrive from pain alone. It arrives from integration, from the courage to pass through testing without bitterness. from the strength to love without attachment, from the wisdom to touch, not to possess, but to bless. And when that readiness meets the right soul, at the right time, in the right season, the addiction that forms is not of control, it is of awe. Not, I need you, but something eternal lives between us, and I cannot forget it. This is the addiction born not of craving, but of sacred memory. It is not destructive, it is anchoring. And so we return to the truth often missed in the world of urgency, that the most powerful presence is not loud, that the most transformative love is not rushed, and that the most unforgettable touch is often the softest one. There is no timeline for becoming, no perfect day for arrival, but there are seasons, sacred windows, moments within the month when fate moves more closely with us. To listen is to prepare, to feel is to align, honor the tests is to earn the blessing. And when it comes, love will not take you away from yourself. It will bring you home to the most divine part of you. The scroll is almost closed. Let the silence that follows be your teacher. Let the rhythm of this truth stay with you. You are not here to chase, you are here to remember, to become the kind of soul that others never forget. So remember this: there are days meant for action. There are days meant for waiting, and there are rare golden days meant for becoming. Mark them. Feel them. Honor them. For love is not found. Love is recognized by those who have prepared their spirit to hold it. Close your eyes. The scroll has been read. The wind has spoken. Now walk your path and touch him, not with hands, but with soul.